Hey everyone, so this is Chicago Fire Season 6, Episodes 12 and 13. 12 is titled The F is For. Um, and I'll just start real quick with this one. So basically, it starts off where they left off in episode 11 with Severine and Matt having jumped off of the roof. Um, Matt's still conscious, but Severine is unconscious but face up in the river. So Stella goes to goes to get him and brings him out, and he ends up being fine in the long run. Both of them end up being fine, albeit a little sore. Um, so the next day, after a photographer named Nate Isaacs had caught Matt and Severide jumping off the roof in a picture, which caused a lot of excitement from everyone in CFD and and government, the city's government. He has Isaac's um, shadow Matt and Severide to do a day in the life spread on both of them. So that's one major storyline that goes throughout the entire episode, which I'll touch on. But then we see Brett having heard from Hope via an email and has deleted it. Um, Gerald then is seen, who is a frequent flyer, calls for Dawson having broken his wrist/arm. And the photographer takes pictures of Gabby and Brett taking Gerald into the ambulance and all that. And so Matt then goes to hide out in Severide's office to get away from the photographer. And in there, Stella comes up and asks to switch shifts so she can go look at her apartment she wants to look at. Um, he notices the awkwardness, and Stella leads after him okaying it. So he's like, "Everything okay, Severide?" And he's like, "Of course it is." Um, Everyone with any sort of sense can tell that everything's not fine. Um, then it goes back to Brett finding out that Hope has started trashing her on Facebook when she didn't respond to Hope's email. So Malcolm says she'd do something crazy in retaliation, but she decides to ignore Hope still. And Gabby tries to encourage her to stand up for herself, but Brett's like, "I'm just gonna ignore her." So Ambulance 61 then gets a call for a man down from unknown causes. So before they get back, Isaac takes pictures of the truck's emblem and wonders why the goat and all that, but they say they don't know why. Matt and Severide come up and tell him that they're about to go smoke some cigars. So Isaac joins them, and they talk for, I guess, a while. And then 61 comes back up, or Gabby and Brett come back up, and Gabby is covered in vomit from the guy down from unknown causes. And when they had turned over, he pretty much just projectile vomited on her. So she's like, "I'm gonna go to the bathroom and take a shower." And then Isaac's all of a sudden is like, "Well, I want to go get some in the kitchen. Do you guys want anything?" They say no. And what he ends up doing is he ends up following Gabby into the bathroom so that he can take a naked photo of her. Matt goes to the bathroom and finds Isaac's trying to do this, and almost beats the crap out of him. And Isaac tries to make this excuse that he didn't know it was a co-ed shower, but they don't buy it because it's like, you really think that we're that stupid to think that this is a coincidence that he's in there after Gabby said she was trying to go take a shower? So Bowden, Severide, Matt, and Gabby all go into the roll call room when Huff Hines come to wait for Huff Hines, and they tell him what happened. Um, they tell him that they'll be calling CPD because this can't be like the first time that this has happened. Huffine tries to be the one to call CPD, but Bowden doesn't it's not having it. He's like, I'm gonna call Huffines, or I'm gonna call CPD. Um, so then goes to Stella and Zach going out on a date to this thing called Whirly Ball, which looks a lot like um, bumper cars. And as they wait for their turn, Lily and Otis turn up, and they're actually going to go up against Otis and Lily in this Whirly Ball. Anyway, so um, at Molly's, Herman gives advice to this guy named Kevin, who thinks it's too soon to move in with his girlfriend of 6 months. So he tells him, Herman tells him, tell her how you feel and all that, pretty much. So when Kevin leaves, Mitchell Monroe, who's a life coach manager, overhears the conversation and thinks Herman would be a great life coach and offers him the chance to do so. Then it goes to the next day where Gerald comes back as Brett and Gabby are stalking the the ambulance, and find that he's hurt yet again on his neck, and so Dawson thinks that he's being messed with. So eventually they go to the camp that Gerald lives in under a bridge and find out who's bothering him, and Brett pretty much stands up for Gerald and gets the woman to back off. So Brett then decides, I'm going to email Hope back and all that, so that, she knows not to keep messing with me and all that. But before Brett and Gabby go do this, we see Herman trying to test his script out, his life coach script on Mouch, Cruz, and Otis. But Cruz is like, well, I don't really understand why you're being so formal when you really aren't formal and all that. And eventually he ropes Lily into becoming his first client without realizing what she's doing. And we find out that two papers have severed ties with Isaac's, and then we then find out that Lily, after talking with Herman, that she is thinking about moving to Hawaii since she wanted to go after college, but her parents stopped her dream to do so. So So we then see Stella going to talk with Sarai, telling him, things are getting serious between me and Zach, but I think things are getting awkward between you and me, so I just want to clear things out by moving. And so Sarai's like, I don't want you to leave, but before she can even say anything, Truck 81 and Ambulance 51 get called out to a car accident. Once there, Isaacs is taking photos and all that, and he's saying he won't leave, and as he's taking pictures, he gets hit by a car, and gets thrown into the street. So Matt ends up rescuing Isaacs out in the middle of the road, and after the call, he's not sure that saving Isaac's life was worth it, but Bowden is like, you know what, we can't pick and choose who we save, because otherwise we won't be able to do our jobs, because our job is to save people no matter who they are. At Molly's that night, Monroe asks for a check for $800 because Herman finished the bronze workbook that he was given, and Monroe pushed him into being an active gold life coach because he finished that workbook and all that. So Kevin, as they're talking, Kevin comes in visibly angry because the advice Herman gave him was bad, and his girlfriend broke up with him because she didn't like the fact that he spoke his mind. So Herman then decides not to go into the life coaching business, and Otis goes to Molly's North to get Lily to not decide to go to Hawaii. While on a date with Zach, that night, Stella decides to talk about, or yeah, decides to talk about Sarai and about how the restaurant they're at would be like some reason to give Stella a hard time and all that. So he then asked if Stella would like to meet his sister, who is coming in town in a few days. She agrees, and that's pretty much the end of that episode. So before I get into episode 13, uh, which is a crossover, the finishing episode of a crossover, or second episode of a two-part episode, a crossover with Chicago PD. So in Chicago PD, Trudy is giving this interview on television, and when they start this interview with her on which is live on television, by the way, everyone hears this like beeping noise, and 30 seconds later this bomb goes off, and the TV station goes black and all that. And so during the entire Chicago PD episode, they're trying to figure out who would do this and why. And they figure out that guy named um, this guy named what is it? Trying to find it real quick. This guy named Larry Shepard used to be this journalist, and there was these two people. There was these two people. What were they called? What they named? I have to look it up because I don't remember off the top of my head, and I don't think I wrote it down either. This woman named, I believe, Sherry, um, and, Mark. I believe Sherry and Mark had had started writing these blogs about Larry, because Larry was writing this story about a woman who was either had gone missing and was found murdered, or was found murdered, and Mark and Sherry had started writing about how, Sherry had started writing about. Had started looking into the case, and how she found out about how Larry was not home on the night of the murder. They don't know where he was on the night of the murder, and she's like, where was he when she was murdered? And basically that sprawled into him being investigated, and assumed that he did it by the general public, and so he was scrutinized in the public eye and put under investigated. He was investigated by the police, and I mean, eventually found out that he didn't even kill her, they had found the killer like a few months later, but the damage had already been done, and he had lost his job and his wife and all that, and so basically they find out that Larry is killing all the people um, involved in, you know, getting him found guilty in the general public when he wasn't, and so it then spills over into the 13th episode of Chicago Fire, and so Voight comes in at the end of the Chicago PD's episode asking Bowden for Gabby and Brett to go to this guy named Lair's house, where they have responded about 4 to 6 times in the last couple months, because he has like a bad heart, and Lair's this guy who's been supplying Shepard with all of his military grade dynamite, and so Voight comes in, wants Gabby and Brett to go in and pose as trying to help him, and but Bowden doesn't really want that to happen, because they're going to be going outside, risking their lives, but they both end up saying they want to do this. So he eventually agrees, and they try to do the whole sting that day. So when Kreese hears about this, though, he's upset, and he goes to talk to Brett. And Brett, he's like, I don't want you to go do this, but she's like, well, I'm gonna go do it anyway, because I think that we can help stop this guy. So Gabby and Brett go over to Lair's house. They successfully get into his house after he tries to keep them from getting in. So they keep him distracted so Adam Ruzek can sneak into the house to clone his laptop, but he ends up getting antsy because of the fact that there are several noises that he keeps hearing, like the door opening after Ruzek picks the lock, and the computer beeping and all of that. So when someone then knocks on the door before everything can be finished, and it turns out it's Lair's brother, not Larry Shepard like they thought it was. So they stall so that Larry's brother can't go in the back and catch Ruzek, and he ends up leaving without being noticed. So then Gabby and Brett leave, and so Bowden, Gabby, and Brett go back to the station. And just as they get back to the station, Squad 3 gets a call to an explosion at a residential neighborhood. And along the way, Cruz voices his concerns to Severide about Dawson not knowing, thinking that Dawson doesn't know what he's doing. But Severide's like, cut it out, Cruz, you need to focus and all that. And once at the scene, Severide, notices that it's the same person who did it, and tells Jay Halstead, who ends up arriving, that it's the same person. So Jay relays this to intelligence, and we find out the woman who was killed in the car bombing was a woman named Janet Powell, who happens to be the mother-in-law of Larry, or former mother-in-law of Larry Shepard. This is where I didn't really quite understand everything, because it from what I could tell, they never explained why Larry decided to bomb and kill his mother-in-law Janet. They never explained why he did it. So I'm still confused as to why she was even killed. I mean, unless what happened was she spearheaded her daughter into leaving Larry, then that okay, I can see that as a reason why he would do it. I mean, I don't agree with it, but I can see why he would do it. Um, but they never explained why he killed her. Everyone else I could understand because they somehow had a hand in, you know, ruining his life in a way. Um, but they never explained why she was killed. I mean, again, like I said, like if she was spearheading her daughter into leaving him, then okay, that'd be one thing. But they never explained it, so it's like confusing. If anybody knows why, just let me know in the comments. Um, but back at the station, Brett overhears Cruz telling Otis about his concerns over her not listening to him, and how she never got back to him about because he asked her to, you know, uh, like immediately call him when they got out of Blair's house, and she never did. And Otis is like, well, if it weren't for her and Antonio's history together, I don't think it would have been you would be this upset about it, which I think had a part in it, but I think it's also because of the fact that he still has feelings for her and stuff like that. So I think it's like two part reason. But anyway, Brett and Gabby go hide out in Matt's sleeping quarters, forcing him to leave to go to the office that he didn't never claim for himself. But before he does, he tells Brett that Cruz isn't a bad guy for wearing his heart on his sleeve and all that. So Bowden then calls Severide into his office and voices concerns about how Shepard killing his mother-in-law seems off. Bowden brings up the fact that, well, he doesn't have much experience in arson cases. He feels like Shepard would have had a practice area for trial runs, and he wants to find out where that would be. So Severide has an idea, and they go to Captain Hubbell's office, who is looking at the evidence from all the bombings, and they ask her to sort through arson calls by focusing on Shepard's neighborhood, and so she agrees to do this. So eventually, Bowden and Severide go to intelligence and tell them what they're thinking, and Bowden's like, well, my experience, arson is built up to their first fire, and I think Shepard is doing this as well. So he and Severide found out that in the past 6 months, there were 2 CFD calls to a particular address, which is 2 blocks away from Shepard's residence. Severide apparently went to one of them, and when he got there, the man who answered the door said that it was just an experiment gone awry. And he had a hoodie on, so he can't remember what the guy's face looked like. So Voight and Antonio decide to go check out the apartment to see who answers the door. But on the way out, Jay finds out that the property that the bombings were at is owned by a company named Starlight Properties. And so Adam overhears and says that, hears this and says that, you know, there's an email, there's a laptop about Starlight Properties. So they go to the property, find the bomb-making material in the garage in the backyard, and Severide identifies the stuff in the garage as the same person who did the bombs. So Voight then asks Bowden to stay behind in case he needs some help and all that. So Cruz then busts Brett back at the station as she leaves Matt's office and tells her, you know, while we had our chance to date and it didn't work out, the friendship that we have is very much important to me, and I would like to be able to keep that intact. And she agrees. So Stella then, elsewhere, tells Severide not to go off on his own to catch a bomber, pretty much. And as she's doing this, Zach comes up and is like, and she's Stella, you know, putting her hands on Severide in a way that suggests there's more going on between them than what Stella is saying. So Severide leaves, and Zach's like, why did you bail on meeting my sister? It's like, well, she gives an excuse that, you know, I was just doing it because, you know, in case there were more hands needed to be on deck for this bomber situation, and she was like, "Well, I can go anyway. I can tell Chief, and I can go and all that." So Zach's like, "You know what? Forget it. I'm gonna let you off the hook, because I'm not blind to your still lingering feelings for Severide." So um, we'll get back to them in a little bit. Uh, back at intelligence, Burgess finds an email from Lair to Shepard saying they're all set for that night. So they go to Lair's house, arrest him, and tell Voight about him, and Voight tells them to bring Lair to the cage back at intelligence. So at Shepard's house, second house, they find photos of the victims with still with their faces X'd out. There's Shepard's former editor, Alan Tellis, that hasn't been X'd out or anything. And so they figure that he's gonna bomb Tellis at the paper that Shepard used to work at. But once there, they figure out that he's not going to bomb or attack Tellis there, but on the train that he usually takes to work. So they evacuate the train stop and find Shepard waiting there. They are able to stop him before he can blow the bomb up and all that. And so basically that's the entire episode. At the end, Stella, tells Severide, Zach broke up with me, and so they decided to stay in instead of going to Molly's, and I don't know. I'm a little glad they're doing this slowly. I'm hoping that Severide and Stella continue building up this friendship first, and then get into a relationship, because after everything that happened with Severide and Anna, I believe was her name. I mean, he needed time, and I'm glad Stella gave it to him and all that. So, the Chicago Fire is not coming back on until March 22nd. So, it's gonna be 2 weeks until the next episode, and I think I saw on Wikipedia that's supposed to be a 2-hour episode. So 2 hours worth of stuff coming back in 2 weeks, it looks like. So I will see you guys then, and see you guys next week.